What's good, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to the AFL video for today, man. The worst team in AFL history. But first thing first, before we even get to that, shout out to my boy King Kalen Sports. For the video, all credit goes to him. Make sure you guys do subscribe to him. Also, want to give a big congrats to my Brisbane Lions for winning. Yeah, I'm going to give a big shout out to them boys for being Port Adelaide this past weekend. Got the job done. Very, very happy with that. Carlton for winning. Big ups to them. You know, they have a big game this week against Melbourne. That's going to be a hell of a game. We'll get to that right quick. GWS for winning. Being St. Kilda pretty handily. And then lastly, Collingwood for winning. So, yeah, you guys saw how short I was with Collingwood. But congrats to those four teams. Obviously, we have two big games this weekend. We have Carlton and Melbourne. That's going to be a hell of a game. I'm really, really looking forward to that game. Also, GWS against Port Adelaide. So, the plan is, again, to go live for the games this week. I'm going to try to do Carlton Melbourne because that's going to be the biggest game between GWS and Port Adelaide. So, I'm going to try to do that one. But if I can't, it will most likely be GWS against Port Adelaide. That will be the game that we do. But either way, it should still be a fun time. It should still be a great time. Last stream was very, very fun with you guys. Very, very, very enjoyed that. Without further ado, let's go in. Hey, let's just hop straight into it, man. I'm not even sure who this worst team is talking about. If it's talking about the last, year or two. Ooh. Is it North Melbourne? Is it West Coast? Anyway, we are going to get to it. Don't forget to like and sub as well. That's it. That's it. Anyway, man. Let's start. Let's get it.
While some AFL teams can go an entire season with only one loss, there are a select few that can go an entire season with only one win.
Damn. Dang. I was right. I was right. I was right. Oh, God.
West Coast have won 1 out of 19 games so far this season, and it's looking like that might be it. Their only win? A 19-point win over GWS at Optus Stadium. But you can't expect Jake Waterman to kick 4 goals every week. It's safe to say West Coast hasn't met expectations this season, which is tough considering they only won 2 games last year. Avoiding
it was crazy. Look where GWS wasn't even supposed to even make it. The finals. Guess what they did? Because they got hot at the right time. Similar to Carlton. Absolutely phenomenal what GWS achieved this season, man. Hey, hopefully, I'm not gonna. Is it like a fairy tale? I guess like you could say. Is it like a Cinderella type of run? I don't know. I don't think it is, but again, it's still very impressive how a lot of people, especially me, I really think they're gonna make it. They're just gonna be a little team, just a team. But now they're playing Port Adelaide with a chance.
The wooden spoon on percentage alone. But basing a team's performance on just games won just isn't a fair assessment. Maybe the opposing team had their best game of the year. But it's hard to argue that case when you've lost 4 games by over 100 points. You want to know how many other teams have lost a game by over 100? 0. West Coast haven't had just a bad season. They're breaking club records that have stood for decades, and not the good kind. West Coast's 171-point loss to Sydney in round 15 of this year was their biggest defeat ever. How can a club go from winning the premiership to the worst team in AFL history only 5 years later?
5 years.
The first troubling signs only began at the end of the 2021 season. It's hard to remember, but before West Coast finished 17th last year, they came 5th in 2019 and 2020.
That's crazy. So they were, so like I said, they were decent for a minute because obviously with like Nick Nat Kennedy and the other good players that they had, they were solid. They were in the top 8, but what was the reason? What was the specific reason they just shit the bed? That's
dropping to 9th in 2021. You know what else happened in 2021? Willie Rioli gave the AFL a fake urine sample and was suspended for 2 years.
Wow.
And it's almost certain he did this because he had drugs in his system.
Ooh.
West Coast drug culture began to get really bad around the time of their premiership win in 2006. After a player collapsed and nearly died outside a Las Vegas hotel in October of the same year, 1 month after the grand final. Of course, we all know about Ben Cousins' drug problem, which likely formed as a result of the club's drug culture. Club culture is very strong and it takes many people standing up against what's wrong to change it. It's possible that West Coast drug culture has been passed on through generations and that it's hitting an all-time high. I can't give any other possible explanation as to how a team can lose by 171 points in today's game where matches are as close as ever. No team had scored 200 points in a decade, and Sydney accomplished it with ease against West Coast. Let's say West Coast doesn't have a drug problem. What could it be? The next thing you'd have to question is their leadership. Luke Shuey, the Eagles' captain. After that loss against Sydney, Luke Shuey stated that responsibility rested solely on the players, and that senior Eagles are not pulling their weight. I watched Luke Shuey.
That's interesting because you don't really see a lot of players. I'm not just talking about just the AFL, but like kind of in general, you see they kind of deflect the blame. They don't really want to accept the blame. They'll deflect it off towards like the coach, stuff like that. For Luke Shuey to come out here, like. I think my only bad thing is that he's coming out here, but they are still getting their ass smacked. Like, they are still getting beat bad. Like I get it, it's not on the coach, it's on us, but my God, y'all still getting cooked. Like, y'all still getting cooked. And it sucks. Because, you're talking all this talk, you're saying the good stuff, but it's still not showing on the pitch. Is it just not enough leaders? Are the leaders themselves just not good enough to lead?
Shuey's press conference after the game, and he honestly seemed disappointed and looked like he cared about the club's success. Compare that to someone like Jack Darling, who was smiling after West Coast lost to Richmond, although he had just kicked his 500th goal, so I can cut him a bit of slack. It is possible that West Coast players only care about their individual success, but I just don't think that's true. The likely reality is that the players just don't care. Not tackling players, not running their guts out, and not spoiling the ball in defense. These are things that waffle players might get away with, but in the AFL it's an entirely different environment. That's why so many players struggle in their first game. Which leads me into the third possible reason. The team is just too inexperienced. Yeah, West Coast has some older, more experienced players like Luke Shuey, Shannon Hearn, and Jack Darling, but many of those players from the 2018 Premier Shannon Hearn and Jack Darling. But many of those players from the 2018 Premiership team have retired, and some of the ones that are still playing have really struggled this season. Andrew Gaff, Elliot Yeo, Dom Sheed. You can argue that West Coast is going through a rebuild, because that's exactly what they're doing. But if you're a West Coast fan, it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. However, many younger players are showing promise. Oscar Allen kicks multiple goals every week. Bailey Williams takes many good marks, and Ruben Gimby got 19 disposals in West Coast's 171 point loss. For a rebuild, you have to be at the bottom of the ladder for at least a few years. Sydney did it in 2 years, while Adelaide did it in 3. And it's possible that it might never pay off and West Coast just stays at the bottom of the ladder with no reward waiting for them at the end. So you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to be the last?
I think with West Coast, also we have the drug problems, more specifically with the whole Ben Cousins stuff, we know about, seen about stuff like that. That's going to be a big factor. Because obviously, Ben Cousins was a very, very good player for West Coast, and to see like your best player on that type of time, it's kind of like, damn, he's supposed to be our guy. And then you have to think about, like the leaders, but the inexperienced players, that's going to happen for every team that has a team of like young guys, because a lot of them don't know how to win. They're all on the same path and journey of trying to like win games and get up to speed with the AFL. So it's going to take time. I was just disappointed with West Coast this season, more specifically because it was just back-to-back seasons in which they were shit. Like, they were bad. No offense. Excuse my language, but back-to-back years, they were just bad. And to me, I think they can be a better team than that. Obviously, we did see some type of progression from North Melbourne this season. But for the West Coast, man, back-to-back seasons, I think they have under 10 points again. So it's unfortunate. But it's a reason why I think some people do consider them the worst team in AFL history. But obviously there's still some work for them to do. Obviously, they're gonna have a high draft pick to pick the next big star. So we'll see what they do. The Rioli stuff is crazy. That Rioli stuff is crazy. Him using a fake urn. I mean, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do to pass, I guess, but just be smart with it. Just be smart with it. But in general, hope you guys stay enjoy the video. Don't forget to like and sub as well. Take care, stay amazing. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.